All right, I'd like to call to order our meeting. I'd motion that we adopt the agenda as presented, or as mailed.
Second.
Aye.
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 Aye. Okay, on our list tonight, our main topic, Britton Hart is going to present his results from his day of collecting data to all of us.
Good to see everybody.
So, hey, first thing I'm gonna hand out to you, you have a folder. If you haven't figured it out, it's empty, but we're gonna fill that up for you. And if you'll kind of keep this stuff throughout the search process, the first thing you're gonna see in front of you, which is public knowledge, and I'll give a copy to Patty, so if people wanna request it or whatever, they're more than welcome to it. But the community survey that we sent out to stakeholders, you're gonna see on that first page, it's a little bit of a, as you navigate this room and walk around, you kind of have to be somewhat kind of tactful about where you walk so you don't trip, but.
Trip
kinda
or
nice.
your camera, your end view.
So as we go back to that second page, you're gonna see that there is 164 participants that participated in the survey.
So that was the online survey, just so everybody's clear, right?
And we
Okay.
opened that up for about a week and a half after the first board meeting when I came. And so that's probably a little bit low of average, I would say, for a community your size. Couple things that may be a feather in your cap is if we don't have a lot of people that are maybe disgruntled or displeased with what things are going on. Normally we see a little bit of an uptick when that happens. And so maybe that's a small indicator for you as a board to say, hey, people are fairly pleased, at least with the current state of where we're at. I'll kind of speed through this. Stop me if you have questions. As you go back to page 2, question 2, really just kind of articulates the years that they've been in the district. Pretty common feedback there. You can see a majority of people, have a long vested interest in this community. Question 3, though, starts to shift to talk about what are those personal qualities. So if you think about what those personal qualities are in that leader, that superintendent role, I'll preface that because on the right side, I rank those from an average score. So you can rank them from 1 to 8 on what you as a patron think is most important, all the way to least important. And then I rank them from total overall score average, if that makes sense. So if you think of it this way, kids first or student-centered personality ranks out the highest at 6.38 and then on down. But I usually like to kind of find you a break point. And so if you look at those first 3, this will kind of marry a little bit with the information that we've heard today during our focus groups. But kid first personality is really someone that when they articulate and come in front of you as a board, you hear them say, we need to make decisions as a board, as a community, through that student-centered lens. And so to help kind of frame that conversation. The second one there, just the personal strength to do what's right. It's interesting to me at my age that sometimes we have to ask whether, Todd, tell me what integrity means to you. Well, that is different for everybody, and everybody behaves differently within that definition. And so you want to be thoughtful, and I'm going to challenge you before we leave tonight of what questions that we ask the candidates. And so as we ask the questions and the desired characteristics that you identify, we need to make sure that we're asking the right questions to be able to see if these candidates are capable of doing the work and they have maybe the experience that would tell you that they're going to be able to fulfill that responsibility. And then the third one I would include would be just approachable, which is pretty self-explanatory. So if you go to page 5, which is question 4, very similar, but this shifts from personal to leadership. So on page 5, you're talking more about the instruction and the operations. And so the number 1, which is fairly typical in a lot of our districts because that superintendent leader is that manager of the resources. And so I think you've been pretty privileged to have a pretty good person, fiscally minded, someone that, cares about the budget, someone that says, hey, this is a little bit out of our means, but we might be able to afford it. And obviously based on your facilities, folks, that'll be one of the number 1 things that as candidates come into your district that you champion. You guys have done a good job there. And that's something that the board is directly responsible for and the superintendent as well. And so it doesn't surprise me if that ranks out really well. The other piece, which we've heard a ton today, just the overwhelming community support, pride, and the connection that the district has with not just business partners, but also service agencies. And so that is something that I think these candidates need to be aware of as they come in to say, hey, these are strong things that we already have established. We want to keep those and maintain those as we move forward. And the third one, I'll phrase this a little different in our focus groups, but that innovative thinker, that really did come up as something that you're going to have to think about and reflect upon how you'd want to gauge that. But what's somebody that really is a change leader, someone that can be innovative, not change the traditions, but change the things that maybe aren't working well. And so that you'll see that resonated with the focus groups. Page 7. This one, if I had to throw out one question, this is one I'd throw out because experience is nice, but it can also be a little bit hairy at times as well. If you could get somebody that has a ton of experience, but maybe as time as I get older, I get a little bit more fixed in my ways, right? Because I've got experience and I've done it a couple times. And so that can be a good thing. It can also be sometimes a little bit of a hindrance for making positive growth. But really the focus on here would be the business operations. Again, that superintendent leader is that one person that really maintains that budget, maintains that forecast of where we're going to facilities. There's a lot of districts in the state that really, to be honest, aren't in the financial realm that you folks are at and in the capital that you have. That's a good thing. State legislature would tell you, hey, you got way too much, Mr. Williams, in the bank. Well, if roof blows off tonight, what are we gonna do about it? And so there's such a balance there, and that superintendent helps guide the board to make sure that, hey, do we have enough in reserves and contingency to do the things we need to do if something more catastrophic would happen. Third thing, superintendent experience. Again, that's kind of my double-edged sword on question 5. You're going to get maybe and possibly have some people that will have some superintendent experience, and you're going to get some people that have some great building level experience as well. And so you as a board will have to kind of distinguish that, and maybe even, I would encourage you maybe even think about it through a mix of perspectives as you interview people. You may interview somebody with strong superintendent experience. You may interview a couple people so you can see that balance and see what the right fit for you is as a board. The last one there, curriculum instruction. You have great principal leaders. That person should be the conduit to set the vision and carry out the board's work. And then really your principals and teachers should be the ones that really are making those things happen come to life. Page 9, which is probably your favorite part, the open-ended questions. Every board loves open-ended feedback. And so I will tell you that this is one layer. Don't hinge on one response or multiple responses. You want to look at that as a whole and not necessarily one thing that may be pouring salt in someone's wounds per se. I try to, if there's anybody's names mentioned, I always kind of, take those out. But for the most part, pretty positive, which is good. Again, I think that's a good reflection.
Right.
Last question, and again, you'll have some time to process this. If you want to hold me up, go ahead and do so. Page 13's last question. What is that single determining factor between two great candidates? And you're going to hopefully have that issue. And I think it's important as you make this decision that you fall back on the data and you fall back on your characteristics. Todd's got experience doing this one time, twice, sorry, hate to say that. But I will tell you that you'll get into the moment a little bit, and there are going to be some of you that you're going to see the shiny penny and you're going to go, oh, that person knocked my socks off. Well, but if you really objectively say, what does our characteristics say? You may go, well, really good interview, but it doesn't really match what we're looking for. And so I will tell you to keep yourself grounded on that, because at times there'll be some people that interview great, but maybe they are not capable or don't have the necessary experience to do the work. And so you might have to sift through the muckety muck a little bit, and this is your kind of your barrier, your safety net to do that. So questions about the survey or comments for the board?
Would you say the open-ended responses kind of carried into what you heard today, or would you say these were different? I was just curious.
What you'll get in the survey is very general, 30,000 foot feedback.
Okay, yep.
And partly we do that so that the board can engage, take all voices.
Mm-hmm.
Focus group's a little bit more detailed group that we can start to get down the nitty gritty and get some specifics. And so really, I would tell you there's two pieces of data.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
Yep,
use
that's
them a little bit differently.
fine. Okay, yep.
That's a good question, though. Okay, the next piece is the stuff, the information we collected today. And so these are the focus groups, and we'll walk through that. And then essentially as a board, I want you to do a similar activity and make decisions on how we'll screen applicants. Again, I really think this part of the process is probably the most important.
You can leave that over there. I'm loud.
This part of the process is probably one of the most important parts because truly, we will want to screen our candidates. Second, we're gonna wanna identify questions that will help articulate whether the people can do the work. And then third, this will be your resource to say, when you're here Friday night, let's say, and you've interviewed 3 people, 4 people, you're gonna have to go back to ground zero to say, what did we really want? Because whether you do this every day of the week or whether this is the first time you've ever interviewed people in a formal setting, it's gonna be pretty easy to go, what did he say? What did she say? Does it really, how does it equate to what we're looking for? And so this really, to me, is an important part of the feedback. First couple pages, just intro letter and really what the questions and structure we use. If you go back to page 4, you'll see we talked about 50 people today. It's about the right number. It gives us an opportunity to get a really good feel. When I'm done, I could articulate this in a speech. It's just, the themes come together. You know what you're prideful of, you know where areas that you need to grow. And hopefully that'll mesh with some of the thinking that you folks have around the board table. So let's go to that next page. You're gonna see the next page. It's gonna look a little bit like this. It's gonna say the most important leadership and personal qualities. So what I want to walk the board through is what you see down below is the feedback from your patrons. So students all the way up to site council members to business partners, etc. They've ranked that transparency and effective communication, folks, is the number one. That to them is what they think is absolutely critical. And then you can see approachable, personal, and I'm not going to read them to you, you can read them. So what I want you to do is you can come up with your own individually. So if Corey was looking through this and goes, hey, these are awesome, good, but I have the 3 as a board member that I really think are paramount, you can do that. Or if you want to circle and highlight some of the ones at the bottom, but essentially what I want you to do is you're going to report out to me, each individual board member, 3 to 5 that you think are in critical. And we're going to build a consensus around this table of how we are going to screen candidates based on your feedback. I'm going to be quiet a little bit, pick 3 to 5, and then as soon as you put your pen down, I'll know you're ready.
I know, I feel like I'm in a. Just this one written?
Just question 1, yep.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, question 1. Yep.
Yeah.
2 overachievers.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I picked them because I had a list.
You
prepared ahead of class.
She cheated.
She.
Have a long drive. I can listen to things. It's okay.
I think most of you are pretty close. And I'm gonna start with the board president, we'll work around, and so if you're not quite done, what I'll do is I'll take all your responses and in essential we'll build a priority here at the board table. I'll get this typed back up and I'll send that to Patty tomorrow. She'll send that back to you. Patrons wanna have it, whatever, it's a public document, but essentially, I normally share this with candidates that inquire with me, and so I'll say, hey, here's what Osage City is looking for. I mean, be prepared. If you want to do your homework, get on the website, talk to people. I don't want them to talk to board members, but talk to people if they so
Right.
choose. And then engage in this work and say, hey, am I a good fit or not? This is a marriage. And I tell them the same thing. We need to make sure if we're gonna get married, we love each other. And if we don't, hey, let's not engage in the work. And so, Kelly, let's start with
Okay.
you.
Transparency, approachable, visionary, student-centered, and decisive.
Need any clarification on any of those? Those, for the most part, seem pretty explainable to everybody on the board. Okay, all right, Todd.
So transparent, student-centered, develop a high-functioning team, servant leader with high energy, and budget and financial knowledge.
How many did we get to pick?
3 to 5.
I think 5.
She only did 3.
I
That's why
had
she was
4
next.
thinking, I was like, going against the rules and going more than 3.
I guess I got 7, I was having a problem there.
I know, I could have literally just kept going, but okay.
So, Tyler, how about you, sir?
Transparent, decisive, budget and financial knowledge, willing to have the difficult conversations and live in the district.
Yeah, let's stay on this live in the district just a second. And so, how do you feel about it? What's the board's pulse and what's that mean to you?
I didn't even know it was an option not to.
We currently do not have a policy that requires
Oh, okay.
the superintendent to live in district. I don't necessarily think it's a big deal. I mean, to me, if they live within the county, I mean, the immediate area, with the way housing is now,
They might even not be able to find a house in Osage
Exactly.
City right now, but
it may not be a viable option.
I didn't know if we had a policy or not.
I don't know that, it's been a practice at least for forever, but I don't know that.
It's not a requirement.
I don't know that we've had it at the board.
Normally you weave it into their contract if that's what you choose.
Okay.
Yeah. Other thoughts, David, Kat?
I just assumed it was
Me too.
a package deal, so I didn't think twice about it.
One thing I would, and again, it doesn't matter to me either way, I think I would guide you in the sense that if I gave you any good feedback, that your bond is coming up when,
8 years. 8 years.
8 more years? Okay, we got a little bit of time. So when and if your bond was gonna roll off, you'd wanna just renew that, or I would think you'd wanna renew it. Cause if you lower your mill levy and then go back to the well and try to raise it back up, as a board, you're gonna have trouble doing that. Now, if, let's say it was 2 years from now, we're forecasting that out, would you want your superintendent living in the district if you had to go back to your patrons and ask for money? I'm not saying yes or no, I'm just saying that as a thought that especially a lot of your conservative patrons are gonna go, you're gonna raise my taxes.
But you don't even live here.
And you live in Shawnee County or what have you. And so when you talk about salary, you talk about contract, if you wanna put it in there, great, our attorneys can help you. If you don't, and you wanna leave it as it is, that's fine too. So just to care to
Thank
think
you.
about.
No.
Personally, I think it shows commitment to the
Yeah.
district, but I don't think it has to be an immediate thing. They don't have to be living here on day one, but within 3 years, I'd like to see them live in the district.
Probably typical is 18 months, give or take. That way you have that
That
commitment.
way they give them the time.
I think especially in our situation now, it could take quite a long time.
Yeah, good.
Good call.
Kat, what is your 3 to 5?
Alright, so I got transparent, listener, visionary, student-centered, and then budget, financial knowledge.
Mr. Williams?
Well, this is tough. I don't think I followed the rules very well, but I got transparent. and
There's always one in a group, isn't there?
There's gotta be one. Transparent, involved in the community,
dedicated to Osage, visionary, a decision maker. I don't see how we could go without honesty and integrity. And I think longevity potential is, from some of our past, is pretty important too.
What's that last one, I'm sorry?
Longevity potential.
You know, there's some, I can't remember who it was, they go, we want somebody that, is not double dipping. I said, well, they're gonna be 55 probably if they're double dipping, right? I said, instead of me saying an age and double dipper, why don't we put longevity? We're not discriminating against their age, but, if we can find that, you guys have been lucky. 24 years with, well, or at least 24 years with consistent administrator. You got a group of 10 years with the group you have. That's an asset to you, and if you could find it again that somebody liked, great.
Well, and I think when you see, you know, a lot of times in the district that this is a stepping stone maybe for a first timer. And, you know, if you're committed for a year or two and then you're looking to go someplace, why, you know, that concerns me, I guess, what I was thinking behind that.
That makes a lot of sense.
And that happens with smaller districts, that becomes a stepping stone. You've got that on your resume now and you move on. And I just soon skip that process and not do this every couple of years.
Yeah, so you guys are this will surprise you, you're on the upper side of the median. So the median district.
On size.
Yes, on enrollment district size, and so the median district size is about 550. So you guys are on
Really?
the upper side of that. And so when you look at your pay night, you're gonna go, whoa, we're not on the upper side of the pay. I will tell you though, that with your question, I really think you guys have the budget and the location that if you find somebody that you want over that longevity, you can make the salary enough where they won't want to leave. Really do. I mean, compared to your surroundings, compared to size, I think you'll be okay with that. But you don't have to offer the hill, the farm the first day, but maybe at the end of the 3 to 5 years, you're gonna kind of pony up, probably. Because the way the trend is there's just not the supply and demand is such that, yeah, it is what it is. So if you wanna keep your person, you give them a bigger diamond ring, I guess. Maybe go on a second honeymoon, I don't know, but so.
You know, the performance can show that, and that's reasonable to consider that.
You betcha, you betcha. You guys set the goals, and if they're meeting the goals, if they're not meeting the goals, we got a different problem, really. So, yeah. Right. All right, Corey, get yourself.
Transparency, communicator or communication, decision maker, long-term vision for the school district. And then I had kind of a tie. Budget finance I like, but I also like a community involved person, namely like a face of the school.
Somebody to work smoke in the spring.
Oh my
Well,
gosh,
you know.
Todd, that was hilarious.
You know. But I think it's important to have a person out and about and everybody knows that, hey, that's the superintendent.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, I agree.
And what better way than to deliver ice and
be a judge.
right?
Todd is
You know, I
on
could
a roll.
plug them in about anywhere and everywhere, so.
So this first question really helps you as a board, whether you are on the same page or on a different page, is try to develop those core values that you feel are important.
Very.
And we're gonna find a superintendent, we hope that aligns with that, and you are gonna prosper. The second and third question are really for the candidates, so people that are coming here. What are the strengths of your district? I told the kids, Kat, when you see your daughter tonight, she's gonna say, what would I brag to my grandma about our school, our district? 'Cause that's really what we want the candidates to know. Some of those to you might be sacred cows, might be traditions, and they're gonna wanna know what we're prideful of here. And so, for example, I'm gonna use Corey, we're not gonna schedule something on Smoking Spring Weekend that's a huge, like, for example, let's schedule graduation on that weekend. Well, that for the superintendent would be a misstep, right? It is a strength of our community and that's a good partnership, but we want them to know what we're prideful of, but also, hey, let's not come in and just upset the apple cart and start off on the wrong foot. And so what are you prideful of as a board? Again, use the list below or identify ones that maybe, and let's go 2 to 3 here. Let's not go quite as many, 2 to 3.
Did you hear that, Kat?
Got it.
an official. I know,
I know.
I
Right,
just was doing two.
I can't do two.
Oh, gotcha, I see what you mean. Oh,
He'll get over it.
hey, that's okay, we're okay with it. All right, we're ready.
they didn't send me home on
He's just
7.
not talking. I was gonna say, Dave had like 82 the last month, so you're good.
Yeah.
You got a lot of room. Okay, I go with what I'm most proud of that I want them to know is our community pride and involvement. But I think above that probably are quality teachers and amazing students. And then last, I wanted to say the board and administration has strong support for our school activities and involvement in education of our children, not just, we have a very involved board. We don't just sit and come to board meetings, we're involved in the school.
Okay, I broke the rules.
That's
I did community pride. Top one, great opportunities for our students. Quality teachers. And our school community is like a family.
Community pride, great opportunities, quality teachers, and then I'll put, the board and administration has strong support for school activities.
I have community pride, quality teachers and amazing students, and then strong technology.
I had community pride, great opportunities for students, quality facilities, and quality teachers. Amazing teachers.
Or maybe.
My top one is our staff. I think we have a really quality staff from top to bottom, all buildings. Community pride is, of course, number 2. Facilities, I think our infrastructure is very good, especially for a district our size. Technology, I think overall for our district, what we are able to provide technology-wise is exceptional. You know, the streaming, the quality of it, I mean, you know, that's to me is fantastic. And then location. And I look at it, and this is more of like on my side of it, kind of as a programmer with the city is that even though this is a small town, we're in the middle of a triangle, and even Kansas City is only an hour and a half away. Wichita's an hour and a half away. So there's a lot of extended amenities that someone could have here, big city, small town, and all in between. So,
Are you folks seeing any change? I feel like the small rural communities are getting a little bit more interest from the folks that moved out and moved to the city because they couldn't do their jobs online. And a lot of jobs now are, if you're gonna keep those great people, you're going to a hybrid. Are you seeing any of that influx coming back at all, or?
I've always seen Osage City as a bedroom community, and I think the way technology is now and the way that everything that has happened the last couple of years, I think you can work from home much easier than you did even 3 years ago, and I think that's different too. That it's kind of made people change their thought process a little bit on maybe a little bit slower
Less
pace
community,
is a better option. More family oriented, situation than living in the big city. But
Yeah, do you,
I don't know that we've seen the influx yet, but I wouldn't be surprised to see it.
I hope so, because I think that's an environment that we have in these areas are kind of hard to beat, so. Okay, we miss anything on that? Let's go over to needs, let's see if so you did a nice job of agreeing on the strengths, let's do the same thing. Do we feel like the needs are similar? The needs I would frame just a little different. Superintendent needs to come in day one in some aspects to fix some things, address it, and maybe set a plan forward to, 1 to 3 years where we're gonna be, so. What does that look like in your mind as critical needs?
How many you wanna go on this?
Yeah, 2 to 3 is plenty. Yeah.
He got burnt
Just
out.
making
but-
sure.
Narrow it down.
Yeah, I made a mistake on 3 to 5, my fault.
This one might be a little easier.
Uh-huh.
Like 2 to 4 inches, it depends who you ask. It's crazy. We were, Greg and I were getting his tux rented in Topeka. And it's like, do we leave or do we just sit here? It's not open-ended.
It was so weird. I drove home from Bueller and driving east back to Emporia, and I had to drive
Just
into
into
the
it.
back side of the store. Hey, the lightning was brutal.
Yeah.
Just brutal.
It's
Luckily, it
crazy.
didn't rain a ton, but the lightning was like,
Ours was
We were getting out of the choir concert, right? And she got those.
Oh, that was last night, that's right.
All right, are we ready, team?
Mr. Williams, you good?
Oh, yeah, I think.
Okay, I went with the staff morale. I think they are pretty, we know they are overwhelmed right now. Long-range planning, I know our bond isn't up for a while, but I think we need to start thinking about what our next vision is. And effective communication with all stakeholders.
Good. Tough.
Well, with recognition of activity involvement and not just athletics. Long-range planning. And then sell our district and the great success of our students and staff.
I went decision maker, proven leader with track level and long range planning.
I've got staff morale, decision maker, and long range planning.
I've got decision maker, long range planning, and make necessary changes for positive growth.
What was that last one, Dave?
Make necessary changes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
I put down relationships, which kind of is more towards staff-oriented type of relationships to help with morale. Pathway options, I think it's important that we look at different pathways for all the students, not just the common or the core group, I guess. Long-range planner, I think it is important that we have some type of vision ahead of us as a board. And the new superintendent, I think, will help provide that in their eyes. And then a decision maker, someone that is willing to make the hard decision, I guess, or a decision about any topic.
So I would encourage you, I'm gonna come back July, August and work directly with you and the superintendent. Do some whole board work and talk about goals. What should those short-term goals be year one? If they're a brand new superintendent, if they've had experience, that looks just a little bit different. What are the expectations you have for the superintendent and what expectations does the superintendent have for you? That can really probably folks only happen one time. Not very often I can go over and say, hey, Dave, this is what I need you to do as a board member. That doesn't work really good. And so me facilitating that, we'll really want to, if you will, set a foundation.
Mm-hmm.
Then I would encourage you that spring, that's when that long range planning should happen because this person's got up to speed. They've kind of built it, soak in what's going well, what's not. They've also built enough relationships they can start to make that change. But you as a board, you set that vision and you decide what we're going to do, and the superintendent figures out how we're going to accomplish it. So that's usually a time frame I would encourage you to think about. Okay, last one. Friday night, you're gonna have these candidates. Let's say you've interviewed 3 people. Kelly's job is to try to guide you to consensus. And most of our boards, you know that pretty clear after you've interviewed 3 or 4 people. Some of you are gonna go, man, I really like candidate 1. You folks said, man, candidate 2 is really number 1. I'm gonna encourage you. You're gonna use this tool to ground you. But you may have 2 candidates who go, you know, I could live with either one of them really, and I think both of them could do the work. What is that one separating factor that you think really is a deal breaker? So if we had fortunate enough to have those 2, what would you say? Boom, this is how we should make that decision.
So 1,
1 per person. Yeah, you don't get 5, Kelly.
well, Corey doesn't clearly listen to the rules anymore, so.
You know, I have done this long enough that if Corey wants to give me 5, I'll write down 5. What am I gonna do? No, Corey.
I like to go back then, I've got a
Okay, the one thing,
Yep, one thing.
so essentially if we think about this, all other things being equal between say, the two candidates.
Yep.
But this is the one thing that would separate them, that's what I need to pick?
Correct.
Okay, just say that out
It's
loud.
debatable.
Yeah, but to find interview questions where we really can figure any of these out,
Oh, they're good. I don't know if you've read them yet.
You're gonna have to,
They're good.
you're gonna have some homework tonight, we'll get to that, but yeah, it's a good question. You have to be real thoughtful about what you,
I think some of it comes through in the interview too,
we'll talk about that process.
but you
a
don't
little
want it to be fake.
Yeah, some of them can be
Okay.
sugar coated.
Well, that's the tough part, there's so much
You have to
to
see
an
through
interview that isn't written down.
bit. Yeah, we'll walk through, after we're done here, we're gonna walk through about what those look like and what to expect. All right, Kelly, kick us off.
Oh my gosh, I don't know.
Todd?
Integrity.
Transparency.
Transparency.
Kat?
pass.
David?
Still thinking.
I think it's a transparency, I think it's something you're gonna see, you can't find on paper actually, so.
I'll agree, transparency.
So the number one thing that was on my list I made was integrity. So I'll go back to that because that's,
There you go. I think those are a couple of great things.
So
Integrity and transparency.
I'm gonna gotta pick one, we've got them too.
We got the two that we
Good,
believe
yeah,
in the most,
exactly.
yeah.
when you have that handy, turn to page 35 in your handbook,
This one?
please. How
I
many
didn't
people,
bring.
how many people brought their handbook tonight? You got
I
any
haven't been
extra?
home 6 months.
Look at Kelly, she's
I'm ready.
She's an overachiever.
Only
is
because,
it one that was emailed to us by chance? Was that-
No, it's the one that got.
no, it was a
No,
hard
he-
copy.
he gave
So
it out
you
hard.
two
The one,
can share
yeah.
that, so to speak, but 34? So you don't have to have it exactly, but I do wanna, part of the reason I give you a folder, and we might have, Patty keep them, is cause board members, do a really good job of taking the information home and doesn't always bring it back, and you guys wonder why your kids don't do it, okay?
You didn't
You
tell
never
us
said.
Oh, you never said, I love that,
If you would've said, bring it back.
I love that.
You'll leave this at the next.
Okay, are you talking 3.4?
35, page 35. So when you
Oh.
think
I
about
was like,
your
that one was-
characteristics, this answers Kat's question. So between now and, I had a date in my head.
It's the starting of all the questions.
Yeah, this is your homework. I'm gonna start with your homework. So between now and April 6th, you're gonna send this information to Patty. So you're gonna pick 15, let's say 18, 21 questions, 18 to 21 questions.
You really jumped that up real quick.
Because he looked at Kat.
Well, we're gonna prioritize those, so we'll weed them down, cause we'll have some outliers on that. But I want you to be thoughtful, when you start on page 35, you're gonna see different categories, so opening question, curriculum, you're gonna go back, you're gonna see leadership, budget, et cetera. But I want you to pick 18 to 21 that reflect
The things we talked about.
the things we talked about. I will send this back to you tomorrow. To be honest, I just wanna make this simple as possible, so if we have patrons listening, we have asked the patrons' input. You've taken that input and now we've identified as a board those characteristics. So I'm gonna put those up top, I'll send those back to you. When you think about those questions, that's where you go with your
Back to
questions.
this.
Yes. And so you wanna make sure that you have those 18, 21 questions that will reflect that. So,
So between 1.1 and 7.2,
correct.
okay.
So let's use transparency for an example. When you go through those questions, you're gonna wanna ask a question that will potentially, and we can weave some scenarios in this, but for example, I'd say, Todd, give me an example where you thought you communicated with high transparency and you found out that it didn't work as planned. Give me an example, as far as based on your experience. Or, hey, how would you define effective communication that was viewed by most people as being highly transparent? And then give me an example when it didn't work well. And so you're gonna wanna put them on the spot to, do they know what it is? Are they capable of doing it? And give me an example, David, that you did it where it worked well and maybe where it didn't work well. So that would frame that conversation. Maybe it's done in 2 questions possibly, but I think you get the gist. So identify those 18 to 21, send those to Patty. We will prioritize those. She'll probably put them in a spreadsheet, say 14 of you or 7 of you pick this one, 3 pick this one, 2 pick this one. Then when I come back on the 11th, that'll be one thing that we say, hey, we'll clean those up and make those final. Okay.
When's our due date?
6th, April 6th.
I'll remind you.
Thank you, Patty. I was just
Thank
gonna
you.
say, Patty, are you gonna send us an email? Okay, great.
Yeah, perfect, thank you.
This may not be the exact time to ask this question, maybe in the next meeting, but one of the things I've thought about is asking them to do some sort of short presentation that they create and actually talk to us,
Meaning like why I wanna be here.
use tech. Well, I mean, we can pick a specific thing to do, or that they do the presentation about, whether it's different topics or just a general overview.
Yeah.
But is that something that could be included in one of those questions at that point?
Yeah, let's shift back to,
I'm not against that. I will say, going through this process with Three Lakes, these questions were highly involved and kind of gave us. They were
so
very good. I mean, they were.
let's look at page 26. So shift over to 26 real quick. So when I talked to Patty this week, one of our things we need to accomplish is questions. We got that job out of the way. And now we need to identify what the structure of the interviews are and when they're going to take place. And so let's do the easy part first. Let's do when they're gonna take place, okay? And so when I was here last time, we talked about the interviews being between the 12th, April 12th,
In the 15th, right?
the 13th and the 14th,
Okay.
those 3 days.
Right.
And then at that point, I had written down 18 or 19 because you guys were making a decision on school days.
Right, so it'd be 19.
19th, okay. And you're out that Friday, right?
We're out Friday, Monday.
Friday, Monday, yes.
So 12, 13, 14, and the 19th. Now, what's that mean for you as a board member? That means that, in some essence, if you look at the schedule on 26, your commitment is really, and I would suggest this as a minimum, and then we'll funnel into Corey's question. I really like, and I've done this long enough now where we've done it both ways, and I like the byproduct of having a informal dinner with the board. That dinner is in executive session. You're gonna enjoy it way more than they are, because they're gonna be trying to eat and, well, how you doing, blah, 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 and you're gonna be sitting here going, hey, I'm enjoying the meal, just listening, right? And so, but what I will tell you is you get the informal personality of the candidate. Just like before the meeting when I come around and say, hey, how are you, and chit chat and small talk, you get to see what the candidate's about and who they are. Now, I will go back up to the top at the same fashion. We need to make some decisions on who we want to involve in the process throughout the day, okay? Couple things for you to think about. I really don't have a druthers either way, but I think you want to involve district office folks, sitting down with clerk, whoever else is in that building, having a one-on-one, and just having a 30-minute conversation to get to know each other. I mean, I think that's out of respect. I think it's also an opportunity for those persons to rub shoulders and, hey, where you been? What do you care about? Here's my family, whatever you want to do. Second part is, I think there needs to be a little bit of time, maybe 30 minutes or so, with the outgoing superintendent. So lay of the land of the district. Hey, where are we at financially? Here's some things we've done, blah, blah, blah. You can kind of keep that, if you wish, short and sweet, okay? So it's more of a, in this case, more of just a 30-minute opportunity in the district office where Patty's at, say, introduction. I will tell you, we want to make that transition of power successful, okay? And no matter what, those people are going to have to get along somehow and connect.
To know each other,
Yes.
because they have to.
The third layer I'd want you to consider is we need to do some type of tour around the district, buildings, possibly community. We need to identify who that person would be that would be equipped to do that. I will tell you, I don't prefer having a board member. So if Tyler's our board member doing it, Tyler gets to know everything about the candidate, and then he comes to the board table, he's like, well, Kat, this is obvious. I mean, this is obvious who the best candidate is, right? Because he gets spent all day. So we don't want to put you in that position. We need somebody in, and you don't have to make that decision tonight. We need somebody in the community that you trust, that's a good beacon, so to speak, of what you've done here and what you're prideful of. And somebody that knows some people, we're gonna take them around to maybe some city places, golf course, whatever. Show them what you folks think are important about the city. Most importantly though is to tour the buildings, meet some staff, and folks, I can't tell you enough, let them sit there in a first grade classroom, meet the first grade teacher. Do they talk to kids? Are they scared? Do they get down on the floor? What do they do around teachers? And this person is a conduit back to you in the sense of, hey, we had a great day. They're also the conduit to say, Corey's our rogue teacher in a building and, well, you've been, I heard it, you didn't do a very good job. Okay, so this person's like, all right, hey, come on, let's move on, and they help you guide through the district, so that way it's a positive experience for your candidates. So be thinking about who that key person is.
In the past, doing this, has that been the board clerk, another teacher, a person that runs the hardware store? I mean, I don't know, I'm just thinking out loud, like, what have you seen work the best as we think about options?
Former board member, somebody like a Jerry Geesey, it doesn't have to be Jerry, but somebody like that's maybe potentially well respected that really, let's be honest, we need somebody they're not gonna be making decisions. Somebody that is gonna
Right.
show the person a
Right.
quality time, make them feel comfortable in the setting,
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Thanks.
so.
Okay.
Yeah, you think about that, you might share that information with Patty and then she can help build a consensus, so to
Maybe
speak.
get to be a couple.
If we do it enough in advance,
Casey,
it might be an option.
Quentin, oh my gosh, can you entertain them?
But that's
Okay.
not all, now we're back.
Okay,
One, two.
Thank you.
I'll leave you with that, both those would be good options, but again, I don't really care,
It
you
could be,
just wanna.
if we have 4 candidates, Q could take a couple, Casey could take a couple, doesn't have to be the same. Does it have to be the same person
Those
doing,
would be the two, I would think.
So
off the top of my head, yeah,
let's continue to go through there and I'll answer your question, I'll get to yours.
I don't even know questions.
So as we do this process, we've kind of covered clerk, superintendent, tour.
What about the other admins?
Yes,
That would be part of that, okay.
yeah, at some capacity you could do that as well. We can start in the morning, start lunch, whatever works best, feed them, et cetera. Make them feel good. They want to come here. When they leave, you want them to come here, okay? The other layer you want to think about, do we want to do a meet and greet in community? You know, I have a little bit mixed feelings about that, partly because it's a commitment for the people that are gonna come meet and greet, like the people that were in focus groups today. If you have 4 interviews, you gotta have 4 meet and greets. That means
The tour does that, right?
some.
Can the tour take care of some of that?
Yeah, depends on how much exposure you want them to have with your patrons and other community members, but really
I mean,
personal
the
preference.
reality is, we don't use the feedback from the community from a meet and greet to make our decision, do we?
Some do, very rare, but some do get that input.
I'm just thinking of
Unless
the,
you had a consistent group.
right. That would
Sometimes
be
they do it for
hard.
staff.
That commitment would be hard.
That would probably be.
Yeah, sometimes you do it right after school when staff, let's say if staff ends at 3:30 and you provide that opportunity for them just to meet folks in the library. Your staff would be pretty consistent, cause it can be 30 minutes, cookies, punch, and then you get out of there.
Okay,
Pretty
a little
fast.
cookie
Yeah.
reception and might give them a nice snack in
So-
between.
Then you'll do a little bit of a break for the candidates, so let's say you're out at school at 3:30, 4 o'clock, the meet and greet's over. And between 4 and 5, let's say they have a break, whatever. The guy or girl is gonna be going all day for the most part, so they're gonna need a little time to freshen up, maybe look at some notes, refresh their memory of what I heard and saw throughout the day, cause they're gonna, if they're good and they want this job, they're gonna weave that into their conversation with you at night. Let's say 5:30, is 5:30 a time that we can all commit to?
Yes, can you, Dave?
So,
Well,
that many days in a row.
yeah,
Would it be better at 6, Dave?
and if the interview does not take 3
Do
hours,
better.
if the interview takes longer than
So-
an hour
Yeah, 90 minutes is about where you're gonna see.
max, right? Okay,
If we could start
This says
at
3
6
hours.
o'clock, that's the-
6,
6 would probably be the best.
6 would be good, we could
So
be
6,
presentable.
6:30 to a little bit of dinner.
6 to 6:30 is if it's not like it takes forever to eat, we could take our time, finish eating and then do the interview.
Yep.
And then did we decide, is it just in here or we can fit over there?
I'm looking at some options.
Okay, thanks Patty, okay,
Those are
good.
both gonna be an
There
executive
might be some
session.
good.
Yep.
Okay,
All that conversation will be
Everyone's bathroom.
confidence, so
Deep up and stuff.
The other thing we need to talk about, so we'll have that list of questions. Kelly will start the interview questions, and let's just say simplistic wise, you'll go around the room. You ask question 2 to every candidate, question 3 to every candidate, et cetera. So when you ask that question, Tyler, you may want to dive down a little deeper and say, hey, give me some examples that you've done this. Just if you would, ask those same questions, everybody. Think what we want to do the best we can. If we have female, male candidates, race, whatever, we want to make sure all the candidates feel like they're treated the same. Plain and simple. So, and we'll talk a little bit about bias next time, but you may know some of these people. You may see somebody who walks in and you go, oh, they're going to be great. Well, they may not be. Listen to the facts. And so I'll help guide you through that when we get a little closer. Now, so we'll finish the interview. Kelly will say, hey, thanks for coming in. What questions you have for us? I would funnel those through her and then have her say, hey, Kat, why don't you take that one for us? Dave, why don't you answer that one? So it feels smooth and uniform. Walk the candidate out, say, hey, thanks a lot. If we interview next week and going to finish on Tuesday, we don't need to tell them that.
Okay.
We'll just say, hey, we're going to make a decision next week sometime.
Okay. I
Don't
was
give
gonna
them,
ask you that. Okay.
yeah, don't give them any, or better yet, since we're doing 2 days, what would the following Monday be?
That's the 18th.
Well, the week so we're gonna make a decision the week of the 25th.
So, yeah.
Because, let's say you guys have a special board meeting Tuesday, Wednesday, you guys decide
Well,
on
we
candidate.
actually have a board meeting on the 20th.
Is that
we
that
moved-
Wednesday?
We moved to the 13th regular scheduled board meeting to do interviews. So we have
Okay.
a board meeting on the 20th. So in perfect, wouldn't we want to be able to make an offer and have them and do everything during that board meeting if possible?
It's short turnaround, so let's say we get done the 19th. We call Todd and we say, Todd, hey, you're our candidate, and we really liked, you're gonna be a great fit for us. Hey, would you like to be our superintendent? He's gonna go,
Give me a minute.
thanks a lot, I need 24 hours. Don't give him any more than that. So if you call him Monday or Tuesday night, you need to give him till Wednesday afternoon, latest, whatever. So give us a decision. He comes back and say, hey, I'm gonna need more money.
We
106,
might be in the
gonna-
middle of negotiations.
yeah, and so you're gonna wanna give Kelly a range, and we'll talk a little bit more about that with salary, but give a range that you're comfortable with as a board. Don't sell the farm on the first conversation. If your top end is this number, don't give them that number at the very beginning, per se. You will be equipped to know who the candidates are, what they're currently making, and I'll also educate you on what they expect in salary. There may be a couple of these folks that we can't afford, and I'm gonna talk to them and say, hey, 150 is just way out of the ballpark. We can't get there. Are you stuck on that? Is that where you're at? If you are, hey, I know the consensus of the board, we just don't need to waste their time. We don't need to waste your time. And so we want to give Kelly that range of that and the benefits. You do not want to have a special board meeting because Todd goes, hey, I want 100 and whatever, and I want my cell phone and I need a car allowance. Well, we can talk about that. We'll have to go back. She doesn't have the authority to do that unless the board has given her that authority. And so then you'll come back. If we do it in a timely fashion, let's say optimistically we can get it done Wednesday night, you would approve. I would send that contract to Todd. He would sign it. He would send it back to me. We have a formal agreement. It's like I shook Kat's hand and said, yeah, looked you in the eye and say, we have an agreement. Can't really break that, so don't hand one out unless you're confident. It's not totally official until the board approves it Wednesday night. Let's say Todd says no. And I go, Dave, man, you're our number one candidate. Dave doesn't know he's our runner-up, okay? Sorry. Yeah. So Dave doesn't know, because I called Dave Wednesday afternoon. Hey, board just met Dave, and we loved your interview, and so we want to make this very timely. Dave goes, hey, I need my 24 hours, great.
Yeah.
Talk to you Thursday at lunch. Perfect. Alpha contract, blah, 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 same process. As soon as he commits, if he's a superintendent, he will have to have a board meeting in his district before you can have your board meeting. Because it's
So no matter what, the reality of us doing it that Wednesday doesn't make
20th,
sense.
just
be pretty fast.
That's fine, and
Pretty
that's
fast.
fine. And there's always we'll make it work,
Yeah.
obviously.
So tell the
Okay.
candidates, if you want to tell them, just say, hey, we're gonna make a decision by the 25th, that week of the 25th. That way it gives you as a board, Dave doesn't go, I haven't heard anything yet. Because if you tell him the 20th, Dave hadn't heard, Dave thinks he's the second loser, right? So we don't wanna
Okay,
paint that picture
got
for the
it.
candidate, so.
Okay, makes sense.
So we're done with the questions. Let's go back to Corey's thing. So if we want to do some scenario, some presentation, when we schedule the interviews, so Monday, the 11th, you're gonna say, hey, Britton, I wanna interview these 3 people. Here's the candidates, great, I like these 3. Patty, will you call them and set up interviews? When Patty does that, she's gonna say, hey, you're gonna come in at 5:30 or 6 o'clock, excuse me. I have one assignment for you prior. The day of the interview, Patty's gonna release the name of the candidate, that one candidate. Britton Hart's coming in, here's his pedigree, here's what he's done. He's gonna interview on Tuesday. Great. If you see him around district, welcome him. Send that out to your community, however you publicize that. Wednesday, you do the same thing with the next candidate, Thursday, et cetera. When you send that information out to Britton, you might say, hey, when we start our formal interview at 6:30, we want you to be prepared with a short canned presentation on X or on, if that's what you guys decide as a board. Make that the exact same for every candidate. So if you wanna have them put a proposal together or a synopsis of something they saw in the district or maybe a scenario of, hey, name the 3 things that you saw in the district today that were really positive and the 3 things that after your first 100 days you might want to consider changing and why. You know, and have them frame a conversation around that so you can say, oh, they know a little bit about us and they're equipped to do the work maybe, so.
I'm okay suggesting, hey, we're going to ask you this, maybe something along those lines, after you've been through the day. I don't know how important I feel like them making a presentation is personally, but it's whatever everybody thinks.
I don't know.
My-
I don't know what, I
I'm
guess I
looking
don't
like
understand what you're
Like
thinking,
basically a 5 to 10 minute thing.
but what are they presenting us on?
What's your
We,
purpose?
we can decide that, we can determine what that is, that
But
could be
what can we
something-
get not from a question?
But what I'm, because the reason I'm an advocate for it is I wanna hear them talk. I want that person, I wanna see the presence in the room. If they're authoritative, if they communicate one-on-one, how easily do they get their point across to us?
I
If
think
they're
we'll get that
trying-
in the interview though. Why, how could you not get that in the interview?
I don't know, I'd also like to see their planning process. If they give a nice presentation, then I'm confident that if that person goes out to the public, that they will convey that to the public.
I still think you can get it in an interview question personally, but
I
I can-
mean, I don't necessarily agree.
yeah, that's
I
fine.
mean, I would even be fine if it was something that was pre-prepared, you know, that we gave them, you know, a topic amongst education in general and said, hey, we'd like to do a 5-minute or 10-minute presentation on, you know, this topic. I wanna hear them, kinda like I said, I wanna see the presence. If it's a lot of ums and uhs and you know, if they're concise, they should be able to get their point across. But even in the interview process, you don't have a lot of impromptu things. This is an impromptu thing, spur of the moment, or could be, so.
I think every question could be impromptu, depending on how we ask it, but you guys, what do you think?
If you as a board decide to do that, hey, great, let's develop something that you feel consistent with everybody. Do not ask them a controversial thing. Don't ask them, hey, what do you think about CRT? Don't put them on but make it something productive. And maybe I would encourage you to use what they saw during the tour and their experiences maybe, and tie that into it so that you can see the authenticity of it and not the preparatory part. Like, so if I tell you 3 days in advance, you're gonna be, well, no, I wanna see what you do when you just get that information, how do you respond? And maybe some of them go, hey, to be honest, I don't have 3 suggestions right now. I don't know your staff. I don't know your district. I wanna spend some time with your board. And maybe you'll hear that as well. So I think it could work in your favor if you craft it in a way that everybody's comfortable with.
Do you see this done in your process?
Not much.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting thought.
I like the snapshot. I like that part of it because they're coming into our district from the outside. Whole new different eyes and different perspective. There could be things that they pick up right away that we're like, huh, that's
But I
interesting.
think we would have that during our dialogue during dinner, we can ask that question specifically.
You know, something like
I don't know.
this,
Yeah,
the world that I'm in, I wouldn't mind seeing just an opening statement, not that we lay down a certain criteria here. You have 5 to 10 minutes or whatever, if you wanna make an opening statement before we start the question. To see that.
Like what their
gives us a-
goals are,
well,
what
it
they're
gives us
wanting.
a snapshot of who they are and
a little bit of what's important. Sell yourself here just a little bit. Then we'll get in all in the questions and what have you, and then see if you
Is
have
that,
any closing statements that you'd like to make to us before it's done. And we get a little of the front side, back side of that, plus get our questions. I think it'd be tough to give them a topic and say, speak on this.
I don't know if it was them to put it together
Right.
or not, and like prep time memorization,
So if they
that's the
do,
only downside for me.
if they do that break period, and say you're gonna have an opportunity, if you choose, to make an opening statement for 5-10 minutes, whatever makes sense. And we can see, do they have that outgoing, assertive personality, you know, what kind of a person they are. And if they, deny
freeze
the
up,
opportunity,
yeah.
deny the opportunity, just wanna start questions, it's fine too. You know, they may loosen up toward the end and make a closing statement.
Some are gonna be, I mean, you're gonna get all kinds, you're gonna get some that are, it's a stressful situation, it's gonna take some time to feel more comfortable. You're gonna have some that feel comfortable automatically. If you do anything like opening or whatever scenario, just make it the same and make it clear enough so that you get the same outcome, so that I know from Kat to David to Corey, I can distinguish between the three in my mind who answered that question better. Instead of making it so open-ended that was really good, man, David, yours was really good, but now it didn't really help you make a decision. And that's really what we're trying to gain toward the questions. So if you make the question enough where you feel like, boom, I think there's some positive to that. And if you want to do that, it can certainly help you craft what that could look like if you need to. So it's up to you as a board.
Let's ponder it more, and so then when we meet on the 11th, we can make those, let's all ponder it.
Might think about what that structure would look like. How much time would you allocate to it? Because if it's gonna be another 10, 15 minutes, if you tell somebody you're gonna have a scenario, it's gonna take you another 10, and so if you wanna allocate that time, great. But let's put some structure, and I'm happy
Okay.
to help if you want
Think
to.
about, yep.
Okay, so,
the board commitment, we said at 6 p.m.
yep, that is your only commitment during the interview days and the days that we talked about.
Thank you. Okay.
So I'll work with Patty and we'll work backwards
To get
based on
those,
what you told us as far as what you wanted to have happen throughout the district. And then we'll build that backwards, so if that starts at 10:30, we'll go about it from there. At next board meeting, maybe a little bit before, if you could let Patty know who your preference is on who would do those tours. Again, that tour could be between that, let's say 1 o'clock and 3 o'clock range. Boom, and then they're done.
yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah. If you, do you wanna reach out to, do you wanna talk to him?
I can't.
That way Patty can help organize that, and it'll be ahead of time, cause that person's gonna have to allocate some time to do that if that's who you wanna use, so.
Obviously, it is a big commitment. Do we wanna have somebody talk to Quentin and somebody talk to, and if you talk to Casey?
Try to use the same person, I hate to say
Never
this.
mind, let's start with Casey.
Yeah, use the
My
same
only
person.
concern with that is you also talked about them leading them through the building and the building tour, and I don't know that that's.
Who could, I was gonna say, could they do a community tour and then we have
one of our admins,
one of our admins do the building tour?
or each of our admin for that matter.
You can kinda hand them off.
Can you do, you know, like, high school at this time, middle school at this time, and elementary at this school time, and our admin take care of this part,
And they'd be more comfortable like interrupting a classroom.
right?
With the admin, yes, agreed.
And that way, let's say Casey, whoever this person is, could just do the formal around town,
Yeah,
structure
and
it.
the time would be limited, less committed,
What, I mean, what are you guys thinking for?
like an hour of his life, but we don't know the exact time.
Well, that's fine, I just kind of have an idea on.
Probably around, it sounds like probably around 1:30-ish maybe for an hour.
After lunch there sometime.
And are you gonna do the buildings after that then,
Mhm.
cause you have a smaller window then if they go from 1:30 to 2:30, school gets out at 3:15.
Oh, cause it was it's tour of the district facilities and community was basically an hour and 10 minutes. So maybe he doesn't even really need an hour.
You know, if he can't do it, Quentin, it's an expense.
Yep.
That, honestly, that would probably be a pretty good one too.
Yep, I'm whatever you, I'm okay with any of
Our
them.
town's not exactly
Huge.
So the town tour guide is gonna be like, should be like a 20 to 30 minute commitment. Let's do that.
What do you think as a board is most important for these people get a glimpse.
I mean, we can drive from end to end in 2 minutes, so I'm pretty sure we can they can stop by happy hour at some, I don't know, it won't be happy hour,
I
but.
mean, is there any,
And then we'd have enough time for the building.
is there any key people to meet with? The mayor, are there any key people in the community that you'd wanna visit with while you're here if you were that person? Maybe not, I don't know.
I don't know, I don't even know who the mayor is right now. Do I?
I think just a tour would be good.
I think the tour is nice, like here's our facilities, here's everything from the football field and the baseball diamonds all the way over to what happens, what's going on
So,
here.
I really think that would be a good one for that, my personal
so why don't we
opinion.
scrap the community member and let's say have somebody like Tony, if he's gonna be back.
Well, or
Tony really doesn't have a dog in the fight, but have Tony, since he's the high school, take him around to the high school facilities, football, baseball, whatever you guys wanna do, and then maybe starting to tour the high school, transition him to Tim, transition him to Dina,
that might be
That
easier.
might be easier.
and be done.
I mean,
If everybody's okay with that, that's,
I think that person can give them a little of the history of what we've done and why our facilities are the way they are and where we've
Use the
come
time
from and
wisely.
where we are.
Everyone think about it, if you're interested, you can drive around the community for 30 minutes yourself.
especially you're gonna have a break.
Do we need to provide them with, like, say, a welcome bag or anything like that, that's kind of more of a,
Nice.
hey, we appreciate you doing the interview, this is kind of a little bit about the county, a little bit about Osage City, about, what we have to offer, what we have
Be
going
perfect.
on,
Be nice, yep,
A little schmooze bag,
yeah, there you go.
Maybe have it.
like you're at the Oscars.
yeah, that'd be nice, but with no
we
physicality.
can take them out, not just for.
Yep.
Oh my gosh,
I think anything you can do to glamour it up and put your best face forward
Make him a t-shirt.
is a good thing. Yeah,
You're gonna
make
have
them,
some leftover barbecue bags.
hey, there we go.
There,
Save for.
I'll have plenty of promotional things.
Yeah.
I'll make some Indians
Yeah.
t-shirts for
But
them, get
think
their
part of
t-shirt
them
size.
selling themselves to us, we have to sell ourselves to them,
Absolutely.
cause they're
Absolutely.
gonna
That's part of our job
search
of
us out,
this
they're gonna look
is-
at our,
Yep.
what we
Yes.
put on Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff, all of that stuff is open,
I totally agree.
I like it,
I
yes.
like it too.
All right, Britton, are we ready to go? Are we doing
We're
good?
about done. I'm gonna go to salary and then if you have questions for me, and then I'm walking out here.
You're more than welcome to chat about our next agenda topic, I'm just kidding.
I gave Mr. Peterson what he needed and leave that to the board. We won't talk about this in a ton of depth, partly because we're in open session. This again is public knowledge. People can go find it for themselves, to be honest. It's all over, all you have to do is hit the Google machine and you'll be good. But I'll walk you through what this looks like. I encouraged Kelly, next time you guys visit on Monday, that 11th, to maybe have a little bit further conversation. Can't tell you enough, you gotta get a definite range of fringe benefits and also your salary so that you don't have to come back to the board every time that something needs to happen.
Based on
What do
the
you
offer
do for
conversations.
Fringe, cause fringe for us has always been health insurance.
So cell phone, if you have any type of car allowance, so that car allowance could be, I pay you a certain amount for a car, or I just reimburse your mileage. If you want the superintendent to go to activities and you expect him to be there, you probably need to pay their mileage.
We have a car.
We have cars, yeah.
Perfect. Is that person assigned a car? Can he take it home?
It stays at the district
I
I
office right
think
now.
our insurance doesn't allow the cars to go home.
Yeah. So I mean,
Because they have
that's
to be returned each time.
that's something they're gonna ask you about, so
Okay.
you'll wanna know. So, okay, first page, if you will, with the Indian head on it. I like to look at it. I don't know how many of you are sports fans or competitive like I am, but there's 286 districts. You are the 119th largest district, if you will. So when you go down to soup salary, if you wanna call it a little bit less than that competitive, so you're about 180th best paid. So that means you're getting, there's 60 districts that are outperforming you in that sense that are smaller
Based on our size.
based on your size. Fringe, you tick down just a little bit farther, and overall, you tick down a little bit farther when you put those two together. Again, it's just a nice comparison to look at, And again, it's one snapshot. Part of the reason your salary is probably where it's at is because you've had internal candidates. I mean, that's pretty typical for a district that has had longevity in internal candidates that's not out of whack for the wrong reasons. Second page, it looks like this. It's more of a spreadsheet-ish. This is more of a statewide kind of average comparison. So you guys are sitting at 106. And if you look at the next column, it says 691 at the top. Those are districts that are 75% as large as you or all the way up to 125% larger than you. So it creates a little bit different range. So you can see that number kicks up a little bit. You can also see that there's 50 districts or 50 principals that are calculated in that number. Everybody see where I'm at? Second column or third column that says region. So now region, you gotta use a little bit of grain of salt there. The region will have districts from 1A to 6A in it, okay? Whereas that first column in enrollment is more of what your like size is. So in your region, close to you, 165 could technically be Topeka-Seaman. Well, you guys look a little bit different than Topeka-Seaman, okay? But that is region 2 and there's 33 districts in there. Capital is the Uniserv district. Those are, again, a kind of a regional based approach. Again, probably a little bit higher than the average than what you're used to because they have a lot larger schools, but there is only 12 schools. Flint Hills is your league. You can see based on your league, a little bit below average of your league. There's 8 districts, at least calculated, or 8 buildings calculated in that response. 3A, again, kind of another snapshot similar to the enrollment. These are all 3A schools. And you're probably saying, well, there's more than 58 3A districts. There's about 60, right? Well, that because some of our districts didn't report. So that's why you get 58, not 60. But you can see the average is somewhat a little higher. And then the state average is pretty considerable that as well.
Perfect, this is great.
Okay, next page, and again, I'm not gonna belabor this, but next one's enrollment, strictly based on enrollment. So I take the 15 districts that are larger and the 15 districts that are smaller, and then I categorize it by the annual salary. The higher you are up on that list, the less you're out kicking your coverage. Okay? So if you wanna think about it in that realm. Less competitive you are in the workforce. Okay, next one is salary. At the top, you'll see this was organized by salary. Again, kind of like enrollment, I did 15 higher salaries, 15 lower salaries, and then I organized it by enrollment. Now again, you can see that you're on the lower part of that. So I told you last time, it's nice to be at the top end. This one you wanna be, let me think here. Out of your districts, there's only 3, that are larger than you. Okay.
Out of the ones you've got it,
Yeah, in that pool of salary.
got it.
Maybe.
Contract days do we have?
181. Oh, what
For the superintendent,
For the superintendent.
It's
That was
260, right?
260.
Yeah,
260.
they're on 12 months. Next one's region, again, region 2. Again, some of these are a little bit average. You can see it goes all the way up to Topeka 501. But that's everybody in your region.
Oh, because we're this random region. It's just- okay.
League, high school league, Flint Hills. It's kind of an interesting set of numbers there. I'm gonna go work at Northern Lyon County. Half the number of kids. Their fringe benefit, you have to do a little research, but that's probably,
what is
might be
that?
state insurance too. So if they're on state insurance, that number gets a lot larger
Meaning
quickly.
if the district uses state insurance
Instead of private.
instead of private, their fringe goes up, but.
Yeah, cause it's a lot more expensive.
That's
And the last
like
one is your KNEA or your Uniserv region, so.
This is helpful, thank you.
I think your best 2 pieces probably are the district comparison and the enrollment. If you're gonna, you guys have a little bit of work to do, in that, or at least in conversation. I will tell you what will happen is that you're gonna get down to the end and you're gonna have that candidate you really love. And it is gonna come down to what the final dollar amount is. I mean, I don't know what you do for a living, but 15 years ago, there was probably 25 apps. And right now, we're not gonna be that fortunate. Nobody is, not just Osage City, but nobody. And so, you don't wanna lose who you think your best candidate is over $10,000, $15,000. So, in the grand scheme of thing, what's your overall budget? District-wide?
Right around 8, 7.5, 8 million.
So, I mean, if you think about $10,000, $15,000, that's a pretty small amount of money. So, meaningful to the district and people that are watching, obviously, but in the grand scheme of things,
Right.
you need to be thoughtful about that. So, questions about anything we've talked about tonight? Your homework?
So we have homework, questions to Patty by the 6th. Come to the lunch with your thoughts around, after reviewing the salary incentives, so we need to kind of get that laid out and decided between us what we kind of agree to. And then, what we wanna do on, question / present, how we wanna handle that. So I think we're prepared to be prepared. So I think I don't have any, in the meantime, if you guys have specific questions, obviously you can reach out to Britton or go through me. I'm happy to have the conversation with them too. So if you guys have any questions, I'm
So
happy to.
nobody's asked me the question, wonder if we get the 11th and we don't have that person we want to talk to, what is our next steps?
We're pretending that's not happening, but go ahead.
I think at this point, just on the early, cause we have about 2 weeks to go. I really feel strong that you'll have some quality people that meet your characteristics that you'll wanna spend some time with. I will not recommend you anybody that I feel like doesn't meet your needs based on what you've told me, or there aren't quality people. I'll just be that honest with you. It just doesn't do you any good, and it certainly doesn't do us any good. I don't think we'll be at that point, but if and when we were, I would suggest to you, if we don't feel like we have a viable option, and you as a board go through this process and go, oh, Britton, come on now, I think we can do better than this, or hey, we need to rethink this. What are our alternatives? Your alternative would be that we would hire an interim for next school year. Hard to do, not easy to do, because there's not like a ton of them just sitting out there waiting. But then we'd open that search back up in November.
Is that the prime time?
Yeah, we're at the very back end. We've had about 57.
We know that, yeah.
And unfortunately, when if you're a big NFL fan, the draft's coming up. There's a big difference between drafting your pick at number 1 or number 32. That doesn't mean that number 32 wasn't Patrick Mahomes, which we did get. But we'll have to be thoughtful about that, and we'll help guide you through that process.
What are the numbers we're looking at so far? I mean,
I prefer not to say, and let me tell you why, Tyler. So whoever's watching this tonight, let's say if I tell you we have 15, and we got a current superintendent, it's like, no way, I'm not telling my board that I'm gonna apply for this job, and I got 15 people to compete against, partly. And if I say 2, they're gonna go, man, what's wrong with that job? That's not a very good job.
I kind of disagree, but that's why we hire you to do the job, so.
If you force me to tell you, I'll tell you, but that's usually my
Is that
stance to you.
something that you could provide individually?
Yeah, would it change your mind either way?
Just
I
curiosity.
mean, really?
It's just curiosity.
It would put me, it would take me back if we had only a couple. Just be,
well,
I'm
that's what I'm curious,
Yeah.
It won't change the process.
Right.
It doesn't change the
No.
process, and I appreciate your fair warning by saying, I can understand that as well, but I also understand that.
You got my number.
Okay.
Yep, I'm a K-State fan, so we at least got that going for us.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
unfortunate.
Yeah, I'm a little cautious about that, just so we get any viable candidate that wants to. Because if you're a current super, I don't want to upset my board and not get the job. Because in this environment, it doesn't take very long for that board to go, hey, you know what? You don't really love us anymore, do you? And so try to play pretty sensitive to that and confidential with that, just because we know that's a delicate balance. Yeah. So, and we certainly don't want a neighboring district to think we're scalping theirs to come to you, and then they're left with nothing. And so it's kind of a weird it's a weird position to be in, I think, a little bit, so.
Okay, any other questions? This is great.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank your people, they did a great job today, it was fun to
Yes. Thank you,
engage with them,
everyone.
and yeah,
That
yeah,
was great.
lots of great things going on here, so, thanks for your time.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you,
See you on the
Brendan.
11th.
All right, sounds great. Okay, we have, next on the agenda, just to make sure everyone is aware, we, April 8th, 18th, and 19th are still as no school days. April 8th, April 18th, and May 19th are still no school days. There was a little confusion in our last board meeting that those could be dropped based on the number of days we took. So, any questions? Just made the announcement, the school calendar has it out there. I think we're clear. All right. Now I ask, Kat, how long should I do this conversation?
Start
15? All right. I move we go into executive session to discuss administrative positions pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception under COMA, and the open meeting will resume in the boardroom at 8:45. Just make it even.
Second. Aye.
I
Aye.
different numbers.
Okay, we're back in regular session.
Move that we adjourn.
Second. Aye.
Aye. Thank you.